just to introduce Michael Hunnekuhl a little bit from Germany, and I am trying to remember the name of the town you're from, and I have not committed it to memory. I'm sorry. But Michael has a history with auroral, the history of Aurora in Germany, and has also done tours, and he's a laser physicist by day, Aurora physicist by night. Of course, he's done a lot with Steve and lists of actually organizing lists of Steve, and he's even recently been awarded a small grant from a European group called SCOSTEP, has a long acronym, for making his list that he's self-compiled a little bit more friendly for all of us in different groups of people, really. So he's going to be telling us about that today and sharing, and hope we can ask questions about some of your work as well, because it's always fascinating. So welcome, thank you, and we'll take it away.
Okay, thank you for your introduction. I will do my very best to give you a brief overview of the list and all the information related to the list. I think 20 minutes is not much time for that, but I will do my best, and you can ask me whatever you like later. So I will first share my screen. So, and I will start with the poster I had on the AGO4 meeting. I will give you a brief overview over the poster, and then I will jump into the Steve list and show you with some examples what you can do with the list. And if we have time left, I can also show you how you can, for example, search for satellites that might have important data that can be combined with the citizen science observations. So just a short remember, Steve was reported first in model literature in 2018 after citizen scientists noticed Steve on their photos and contacted scientists and asked what they captured, and they realized that Steve was something new for the science community, and citizen science played an important role in the identification of these structures, and still are very important for the further research on Steve. And what I've done and reported here in the poster is I compiled a list with citizen science observations of Steve. I started with that work in 2018, released the first list in 2019, and recently released an upgraded version of the list, which is interoperable, so you can use the list with or work with the list by applying your own software tools. The data has a clear structure, so you can apply own tools. I will show you that later. So the list contains more than 1,000 single Steve observations for 217 days with time. And yeah, I think I will jump to the content of the list, because this is, I think, most important. So first of all, what was the main development goal for the list? Making all the citizen science observations available for scientists to look for such observations, and to put that in a form that can be used by scientists, so giving full access to all the data which is in the list. And this was not the case for the first version of the list. It was more or less a PDF file with all data, but not accessible. And I think it helps a lot to work with the list to have the full accessibility. What is in the list? All observations listed there have information for the day of observation, reported times if time was reported, so local time and UT time zone. I have a time quality flag that shows if the time was reported as some kind of exit time, or if the observer reported that the observation was observed around a specific time. There's an assessment of the likelihood of the listed Steve observation. So I started a review with experienced observers, and they had a look at the Steve observations and rated the likelihood of the observation as highly likely Steve, possibly Steve, or possibly not Steve. All this data is in the list, and there's also a supplemental document with much more detailed information on this review. So this contains a lot of geomagnetic data, so KP index for the observation times, AP index for the day before observation day and day after. There's a link to an KP visualization tool. I have links in the list for solar wind data and auroral electrojet data. There's a lot of information for geomagnetic storms, and then of course also links to the observations. In some cases also observer names, but only with permission. So I do not list observer names in the list without a written permission that I am allowed to do that. I think this is important. There's also a supplemental document with the terms of rules defining all the formal stuff related to the list. I have a lot of comments in the list that give you, for example, information if there is data available from scientific instruments or not. This is not implemented completely, but I've started with that. So the list is available in 3 formats: as a PDF file, as the first version of the list, just as an overview list, then an Excel file with implemented selection tools. I will show you that later, and a text file with a defined data structure that allows you to use the data and work with the data with own software tools. So all the data, so the list and all the supplemental documents are fully accessible for everyone. So there's no availability is not restricted to a limited group of people. So everyone have access to the data. Here's a link to the folder on the Open Science Framework data repository where I put all the data. Just a few information to the supplemental document. So there is of course the terms of use. I have some documents for geomagnetic storm classification. Then I think very interesting a supplemental document with a classification scheme for subaurora, aurora, and aurora-like structures. So this list summarizes different types of substructures of Steve, for example. Several of them not reported yet in the literature. There's a supplemental document related to the data structure, so explaining in detail the data structure so that everyone knows how to interpret the text file with the data. I have a document with the selection criteria for the list, and then a detailed document with the reviewer details and a short document summarizing all the content of these supplemental documents. So then I will show you some first observation statistics. So I think this one is interesting. This graph shows the days with Steve observations per year worldwide, starting from 1999 to November last year. So what you can see here that there's a significant increase in the reporting rate in 2015 and a minor first step in 2012. And then some decrease in the reporting rate during the main phase of the coronavirus pandemic, possibly related to that. So it's not clear what are all the effects that leads to this decrease. But in 2022, we have almost the same reporting rate as before the coronavirus pandemic. So in the range of 25 to 30 days per year worldwide with Steve observations. So this is the same, but separated for different regions. So Southern Hemisphere, North America, and Europe. I think this is important because you see that the rate for Europe, for example, is constantly increasing. I think this is more or less related to an increase in the awareness of Steve, and more observers are looking for Steve and report on Steve in Europe than before. I also have graphs showing the seasonal variation of reports. And what is very interesting is that this monthly variation is more or less the same as the statistic for sets. So it looks more or less the same. This is the same here for different regions. So Southern Hemisphere, North America, Europe. I also have this statistic for more for smaller regions, but I did not show that statistic here on the poster. So my plan is to switch now to the Steve list if we have time, and give you a very brief introduction how you can select specific observations in the list. Okay. So this is the list. What do you see here? You have a lot of columns with data. First, it's just a number that counts the observations. Then you have an ID that is the day of the observation. The next row is an indicator for the observer for that day. And you have data for the local date and UTC date, the year, times. Here you have 2 times in the lists, 2 times because several observers reported multiple images, and I decided to put in here the first reported time and the last reported time. In some cases, there's only one identical time when observers only posted one image. So in this case, they're identical. Then I have information for the time zone. Then here the data for the date and time, beginning and for the first reported time and the last reported time. Then we have a time quality flag that shows you if the time was reported as an exact time, or if the reporter stated that this time was a rough time, or the time was just before a specific time. So this gives a little bit more detailed information how precise the time is. But in any case, it is of course important to be aware that reported times are not always the exact times, because most observers do not calibrate the camera time before, but there are ways to do such a calibration afterwards. Then I have a column showing if there is scientific data for this observation or not. So if you, for example, select here yes, you will only see observations for which data from scientific instruments has been reported in the literature as available. For example, here this is data, for example, from Rigolac or Themis and so on. So I will go back to the column, allow all observations. Okay, then here are 4 columns showing the results for the assessment from observers. This process is not finished yet, so I'm still searching for experienced observers who are interested to review the list and give me some comments on that, and I will add their ratings in the list, of course, anonymously. And I think this is important for scientists to have more feedback from the community on the reliability of the list. Then I have data for the KP index, then AP index, then of course, important link to observations. Not all observations listed here has links. The reason for that is I only have links here in the list for observations that have been reported in publicly available sources. So, for example, public Facebook groups. I also have here observations in the list from private groups, but of course without a link, because I think that I cannot put a link here in the list without be allowed to do that. And I have here a link to this to data from Supermarket. That data shows you solar wind data and auroral electric data. Then comes a lot of geomagnetic data. Here's a column that shows you if the observation is from the northern hemisphere or the southern hemisphere, the country. Then a little bit more detailed, the region where the observation was reported from, then the observer name, an indicator that shows if the reported footage was a photo or video, and the source where the observation has been reported. And here are two links to the observation. Sorry, one link, in some cases two links. Then a column that shows, column that shows you, just have to, okay, no. Cannot, what is that? My monitor is too small. I cannot shift that correctly. Okay, this is a column showing the last day when I have checked the link. And then important, I have three columns with comments that give you more detailed information on the listed data. For example, in some cases, I have times in the list that are not in the original report on Steve, but the data was reported directly to me, and I think it is important to clearly show what data was reported directly to me and it's not in the original post. So that is clear if someone needs the data that or she has to contact me to look for the data. Also important, the last comment list, and this list, so this column summarizes the availability of, or possible availability of scientific data. For example, I've checked for some observations if there was a DMSP satellite close to the observation site or close to the conjugate point. This process is not finished, so I only have a few of such comments in the first version of the interoperable list, but I will add more comments on that in the next version, so that it would be easier to look for scientific data related to the list. Okay, I think this is the most important what I like to show. If you have specific questions, I think it would be best that I address that. For example, if you like to know how to search for satellites that might be important, or if you have questions to the supplemental documents, for example, for the classification scheme, just ask. I think that we can show the documents. Okay.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's a lot. Thank you so much for all of this thorough and interesting work. There are some comments in the chat about how fascinating. Donna said it was fascinating to see the different observations and from different regions. For instance, like there are many reports of pickets in the southern hemisphere. but without the visible Steve. And yeah, if other people have more questions, we can take the conversation wherever they want to go. They've been sighted in Finland. Have you seen a Steve in person, Becca, at all?
Not that no, I don't think so.
Gotta get on the boat at the southern point and see.
Yeah.
Also, yeah.
In
No.
theory, we should be able to, but just, yeah, not yet. There have been a couple times where I've been off ship and the science coordinator on board thinks that they see Steve, but really it's just a field of line current, normal aurora. So I think it can be kind of confusing if folks are looking for that green picket fence and see a green field of line current that is a normal aurora. It can sometimes seem like it is belonging to a Steve when it isn't.
Right, and by field of line current, you mean like a tall ray kind of thing.
Yeah,
as
yeah.
opposed to a side to side sort of structure.
Yeah, exactly, like a vertical arc.
The southern hemisphere observations I always find interesting because they don't get quite as close to they can't get quite as close to where Steve tends to show up because of their latitudes. So I kind of feel like they're looking through the mauve of Steve and they're seeing the picket fences, but they're not easily able to see the actual curtain. Like I've seen a few time-lapse videos where in the time-lapse you can very faintly see Steve moving left to right through the field of view, but you'd never pick it out in a still photo. Because the motion just isn't, you need that motion to see it. It's just so thin.
I noticed the same, that a lot of photos from the southern hemisphere clearly show the picket fence, but the arc is not visible in many still images. And if you have a video, you can notice the motion. That's important. And I also learned that a lot of observers from the northern hemisphere didn't notice that before, and they expected that Steve looks the same on the southern hemisphere, but in most cases you only see the picket fence.
Do you have observations from the south that kind of predate our discussions and observations of Steve kind of coming to the forefront that sort of happened in 2015? I know they were seeing things around the same time as well, and I suspect earlier also, but I can't quite remember.
Yeah, I think in the southern hemisphere they started the discussion in 2012 about.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, but they didn't contact scientists as far as I know. Yeah,
and then of course, since we're going to put this on YouTube, we can say that, you know, anybody that wants to submit observations how can they best get in contact with you, or respond to your queries in different groups, or do you have any?
Yeah, at the moment I do not have a web page where you can report that. So in the past it was always so that I tried to contact observers mainly on Facebook. It's often very difficult to get in contact because if you contact someone, it's mostly not the case that he responds because the person doesn't know me at all, and that's always a hard way. I think the best way to get in contact with me is at the moment to write an email or to contact me via Facebook. I check that more or less on a daily basis, and I think that is the best way. So on the long term, I think it would be better to have some kind of web page or some tool like that is, I think, better suited to get in contact, but at the moment by email or by Facebook.
Yeah, there's definitely pros and cons of both, and getting people involved in the loop is helpful too. We've tried it both ways, but and yeah, something to improve still. And I say that on my side, not on your side. But yeah, Nancy, do you want to say anything more about the Neutrino Observatory, if you know any of the people down there, or any other kind of connections to the different stations in Antarctica? I think that there are some good observations down there as well, of course, in the summer.
No, I did do some research down there, but that was back in the 80s. But I could ask around because I volunteer at the University of Washington Astronomy Department, and maybe some people know folks there. So I'll ask.
Yeah, definitely.
That would be really cool. And there's many countries that have research stations, and people that overwinter do have downtime. And I see posts on Facebook of gorgeous auroras from some of these research stations that I, follow their blogs. So I'll contact them.
Hugo, you want
Can you
to
hear me?
ask more about that, your comment, or say your comment?
Yeah, I don't know. This is just an idea. I think Michael, maybe he can create a page like Steve page, and he's gonna control it. All the whoever is sending images or info is gonna go to him. So I don't know. I would give it a try if I was looking.
The only logistical problem I would have with that, or for what I would need, is the limited time. I think it would be
Right.
very, very useful to have that, but I think it would be necessary to have more than one people to run that. That would be very important. But if more people would be involved in operating that, that would be a very good idea.
I'm here if you need me. So.
Yeah, there could definitely be more admins. I think if you used Facebook, there would also be a significant amount of like manual moving of the pictures somewhere else.
I'd be happy to help out as well.
Okay.
Yeah, even I can help you out there, Michael, if you need any. I thought Chris had a Steve phenomena, but that's a Twitter page, isn't it?
The Steve
No, Facebook.
persona lives on Twitter and on Facebook.
Okay.
Is it a page on Facebook or something?
Yeah. It's not quite as active on Facebook, and it's not quite as smart-assy on Facebook. Is that a term? Can I say that if it's going on YouTube?
Sure. Let YouTube take us down. Yeah. Send the complaints. Parents will be complaining to me. It's okay. All right.
I think on another slightly different note, the new AI, the ChatGPT, has a definition of Steve. It seemed fairly accurate, and it called it like it did capture a brief how Steve was formed, and then give an answer of possible subion drift as a possible explanation to Steve.
I haven't tried ChatGPT yet. It sounds scary.
It's scary and it's pretty cool.
So is it just a website that you
No,
talk to and it talks back to you or something, or what?
Yeah, so there is an app version. The one I got was just online, so it's just on your web browser. I think you just log in, create an account. It was fairly simple, straightforward. Then once you have it, it gives you just like an interface on the web. You can just type in a question, and within few seconds, not even few seconds, within microseconds, you have an answer, and it's fairly accurate. And then you can start playing with it. Once it gives you a definition, you can start playing with it to ask deeper questions. The only challenge is I think it's programmed till 2021. So if you ask something beyond 2021, it'll just say that I'm not designed to answer anything after 2021 or something like that. But it's pretty cool. It's fairly accurate. So
maybe you could
apparently now
loop
this-
it into the Facebook page. So when people ask if there's Aurora tonight, ask it if there will be Aurora tonight. Ask
I
it
did
what,
ask that question, so I think that I put that answer up on the Aurora Chasers Facebook. I think it said it's not designed to answer that question, but it did say refer space weather, and then it also give, because I said was it in Calgary, it also directed me to a Canadian Space Agency or a Canadian Aurora tracking website as well. So it's pretty cool that way. But yeah. It's pretty smart.
Okay, good. Good. It can't do everything.
Yeah.
Today.
Yeah. Yet today. It will learn shortly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's already learning
Yeah.
as it's listening to us right now, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it can
And I
also
think that's their idea. So they put it out for free right now, and as you start using it, it starts learning as people start using it every day.
Mm-hmm. I do have a technical question, Michael, about you said Steve's, the frequency looks like the SAIDs. And I can't remember with the SAID paper if there's a geographical distribution of those or some bias to how those are being observed, because they are primarily being observed by like the DMSP satellites that are in some kind of sun synchronous orbit. So it's not quite the uniform distribution. But anyway, I was just wondering if more about this sort of longitudinal distribution around the globe. It's another place where we still need observers all the way around the globe. There could be a nice campaign for that as well. So
yeah, I can check the paper if this is mentioned. I don't know it in detail right now, but I have the paper and can check that. What longitudes are covered and what satellites observed. What I know right now, because I have the paper here open, it covers the time from, just a minute, 1987 to 2012, and this statistic includes 18,226 SIDs. So it's quite a lot of data. But I have to go into detail and look for the regions.
I can look at that too.
And
Does anybody want Michael to show us more about the list, like how he looks to see if there are satellites with any of the Steve observations? That might be useful for people. I see Donna nodding at least and smiling. So let's try that if you're able to do that quickly.
Okay, I can share my screen. I've prepared everything, so I think it don't take much time. So, just a minute. Here it is. So the first tool I can show you is a satellite locator from NASA. I got that address from Toshi Nishimura, and what you can do here is you can select satellites. So relevant for Steve, I think DMSP satellites, for example, in Swarm. For Swarm, I can show you a separate, I think, more comfortable tool. I've prepared here an example where the DMSP 18 satellite was close to an observation. So what do we have to do? First of all, you need the address. If someone is interested for the website address, I can send it to him. Then you have to select the satellite. You have to choose as plot type mapped projection plot. So that means that the satellite trajectory is mapped onto the Earth surface. Then you have to define a start and a stop time for the plot. That means you have to type in the the year, the day of the year. There are tools to find the day very easily if you know the day and the month. Then the start time and the end time in UTC. Then next step is to press the plot options. And here you have, it's important that you chose, if you want to look if the satellite was really over the position of the observation, you have to choose the radial selection. In the other cases, so B-trace north or B-trace south, that means the satellite position will be tracked along the magnetic field lines onto the surface on the southern hemisphere or northern hemisphere. This is important if you want to look if Steve was close to the conjugate position. But if you want to look if the satellite was over the observation site, choose radial. Then do with continents. This is only for the map, so you can use all the default settings here. You can define the size of the map. Per default, you see the complete Earth. Then you have other options where you can define the time distances between different positions shown on the map. And then you only have to push the plot button, and then you will see a graph showing the trajectory of the satellite mapped onto the Earth's surface with time. Yeah, I see this is not very good readable because I chose 1 minute steps. In this case, this is very interesting. These are times for Steve observation from Great Britain, and in this case, the DMSP 18 satellite was very, very close at the correct time to the location of the Steve observation. And as far as I know, this Steve has not been reported in the literature, but I think I only have one observation in the list, so it could be difficult to get in contact with the person who has this observation. So this is an example for DMSP. Another example.
Can I point out
Yes.
one thing?
Yes.
Just so you chose like about an hour of time here or something like that, 45 minutes.
Yeah,
And
45
so
minutes.
the DMSP satellites are in low Earth orbit, which orbits every 90 minutes. So basically you can see about half an orbit here, where it's going, and then how it maps on the Earth. It looks a little funny because satellites have sort of an inclined orbit, and then this is your, there's map projection sort of effects. This is not on a globe and stuff like that, but
so
this is how they look.
The satellite will not fly over the pole. Okay, so then next, this is not the correct one. What is here? I can not see the correct one. Just a minute. Where is it? I've prepared that. Okay, next. There it is. Okay, so I've chosen as an example the Steve observation from your first paper on Steve, Liz. And here's a tool called Virus for Swarm. This is a tool that allows you to show you the trajectories of the swarm satellites. You can define times, choose the satellites. So the swarm constellation consists of 3 satellites, and then you can define a set of parameters you want to plot. In my example, I decided to show the electron temperature, the electron density, and the cross-track velocity of the ions detected by the satellite. So that means the velocity of ions that were detected from the site. And you can see here in this image the trajectory of swarm for the time window you have defined. So this is here the window for July 26 in the year 2016. And what you can see here in the graph is that you have here a very high velocity here, around 7,000 meters per second. And if you click on one of these dots, you can see here in the map where the satellite was at that time. And you will get a list with all the data from the satellite for exactly this point, times, and yeah, or what you like to have as a scientist. And this is a very, very comfortable tool to look for possible overflights of swarm satellites over observation sites of Steve.
Yeah, so this one gives you more information than the last one. The last one would give you the actual data as well, but this one plots both the location on that globe as well as the preliminary data. And I should say that often the data that people get from these kinds of services have some caveats and rules of use, and they often want you to confirm that you understand those kinds of things before you would put it into a paper or something like that. But this would be very useful for doing your own research as far as whether there could be a satellite observation of a Steve or an SAID specifically, along with a photo.
Michael?
Yes?
Sorry, I missed your talk. I couldn't make it on time. Are you aware of the 4D orbit viewer related to the first tool that you show? It's a NASA tool that basically does what you show in the first tool, with the first tool and with this tool, with the advantage that you can select multiple satellites.
Okay.
So you can select a couple of DMSP, a couple of swarm, you put the time, and it's a nice tool because gives you the globe underneath, and you can move it so you can have a height related, you can map or trace the location to the north or to the south.
Yeah.
And you can include also observatories like Mission Hill radar. So it will put a mark on that location. So of course, doesn't give you the data as you show here in Swarm, but it combines all the satellite available. Okay. And you can make the traces and print out, and it's a good tool.
Yeah. Is this tool freely accessible, or would I need IDL or something?
Yes, no, I think it's freely accessible. The only thing you need to have is some kind of Java thingy, because it's a lot of plots and diagrams. So, but yeah, so you can access. Let's see if I can find
Java. Yeah, that's a little bit of a restriction just because it's so difficult to get Java to work nowadays on a browser. But
well,
it's something they have some information about that here, so you can kind of read through that part. But it's really nice. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah,
that would be a very interesting tool to look at. Definitely, yes. Okay. Okay. Is there another question?
What are the colored lines at the bottom here? I haven't actually.
So yeah, to be honest, I did not use this tool very often so far. So I'm very low in the learning curve. So I cannot give you a clear answer for that. I think this shows you data availability for different sensors on the satellites, and they are color marked, but I have to check that.
And there are multiple swarm satellites, so
yeah, this should be only for swarm A, I think. Just a minute. Yes, I only plotted the swarm alpha. So if I go here with the cross, okay. So that I think this shows you the availability of data from different sensors from the satellite, depending on the time.
and orbit location, probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. So yeah, this one looks like a great tool to check out, and certainly requires a little something to play with. Might or might not be easy to use, but it is free and it does have some power, so that would be really great to check out. And we could maybe do more with getting on with some of these if people are interested. So let us know if that's something. I think that could be nice to spend a little more time